Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to call the meeting of the Audit Committee to order, please. Michelle, are there any public speakers?
Good afternoon. We have two members of the public registered to speak today. The first speaker would be Jason Anthony, followed by Charlton D'Souza.
Good afternoon, Audit Committee. The only item that I have today is we should do an audit regarding the BRC contract with the whole MTA, because obviously we're talking about a lot of money, but where are they when in terms of getting the homeless out of the system, doing outreach? I could barely see them, to be honest. So we need to do an audit to this contract as of yesterday. In other words, last year. Because time is running out, and I'm going to stand down in a little while, and I can see homeless people even on a station across the street. So we need to do the audit to this contract pronto, ASAP. So I'll see you guys Wednesday morning.
The next speaker is Charlton D'Souza.
Good afternoon. My name is Charlton D'Souza. I'm the president of Passengers United, and I have to say this message to the MTA board members. The homeless commissioner for NYC, the homeless services commissioner, needs to be at the MTA board meeting next month. He needs, or even on Wednesday, he needs to be there to answer the MTA board's questions, as well as the State Comptroller's Office in terms of the BRC, the Bowery Residents Committee. I travel the subways overnight. I rarely see a BRC worker. And many of the homeless people in the subways are telling me that they're being given business cards to call for services. And then when they call when they call the number on the business card, they're getting a voicemail. So that's not helping the homeless. The homeless and mentally ill need the one-on-one intervention. They need they need professional help. And the subways are just a mess. So the audit committee needs to do its job. In fact, if the audit committee had done its job 2 or 3 years ago, perhaps maybe Michelle Go would not have been killed again. So, this board now needs to ramp this up fully. And what I want to know is the city of New York in charge of the MTA homeless services now, or is the MTA running the show? And that has not been announced. None of our concerns has been addressed by the MTA board members today in any of the committee meetings. And I'm very concerned about this. We're talking about the police, yes, we're talking about things, but until we get the social service providers and the mental health professional situation in the subways corrected, and everyone's on the same page with the city and the state and at the local level, then we're going to get this right. So I need the board members to be asking the questions that need to be raised. Thank you.
This concludes a public comment period.
Thank you, speakers. Thank you, Michelle. Next, we have the approval of the October 18th Audit Committee minutes. Any corrections or changes? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. And a second, please? Thank you. And a vote that the minutes are approved. Thank you. Minutes are approved. Michelle, can you take us through the work plan?
Yes, Madam Chair. There will be 4 meetings this year, and the specific agenda items for each meeting can be found on pages 8 through 14. The proposed work plan was included in the committee materials in October, and there are no suggested changes to the work plan.
Any questions? Okay, may I have a motion to accept the 2022 work plan? Thank you. A second? Thank you. And a vote to accept the 2022 work plan, please. The work plan is approved. Next up is Deloitte to present the results of their review of the third quarter 2021 MTA consolidated interim financial statements. The financial statements will be issued in final form after the Audit Committee's review and approval. Jill Strohmeyer, Managing Director, will give the presentation. Jill?
Thank you. Good afternoon. Deloitte is in the process of completing our quarterly review procedures of the MTA's consolidated interim financial statements as of and for the 9-month period ended September 30th, 2021. A reminder to the committee, a review of interim financial information consists primarily of analytical procedures and inquiries of persons responsible for financial and accounting matters. A review is substantially less in scope than an audit, the objective of which is the expression of an opinion on those financial statements. These quarterly financial statements are consistent with prior quarters, and the accounting principles used in the preparation of these financial statements are also consistent with prior quarters and prior years. There were no accounting adjustments proposed by Deloitte as a result of our review procedures. And based on our reviews, at this time, we are not aware of any material modifications that should be made to the interim financial statements for them to be in accordance with GAAP, or accounting principles generally accepted in the United States. That concludes my prepared remarks. If there are any questions regarding our review procedures, I'm available to answer them.
Thank you very much, Jill. Are there any questions? May I have a motion to accept the third quarter 2021 financial statements? Thank you. A second, please. Yes, thank you. And a vote, to accept the third quarter 2020 financial. Very good. Thank you. The third quarter consolidated financial statements are accepted. Next, we will have Lamont Kearse, MTA Chief Financial Compliance Officer, who will brief the committee on selected aspects of the Enterprise Risk Management Program and agency compliance with the MTA's internal control guidelines. Lamont?
Thank you. Good afternoon. The presentation starts on page 145 in your committee books. I'm going to basically focus on the executive summary without going into each individual slide. Obviously, if you have a question, I'll be more than happy to answer it. So far, we have conducted for the period 2021 through today, 1,182 vulnerability or risk assessments on business processes across the MTA that are ranked high, very high, significant, or certain areas that represent a significant risk to the organization. We are in the process now of conducting control self-assessments, which are basically testing controls to ensure that they are operating as intended. At this point in time, we have done 1,341 control self-assessments. As of to date, we have a 77% completion on those assessments with a 99% pass rate, and hopefully we'll be completing the rest of those very soon. As part of the internal control program, we will be conducting 2 other assessments, one called a fraud risk assessment. We've opted to focus on revenues this year, as well as a point of focus, which is also a requirement. As it relates to the control assessments, when in fact the control does not pass its assessment, a remediation plan is created. At this point in time, we have open 24 remediation plans. At this point, as I said before, the assessments are still ongoing, so I hope that number will not go up, but there is a possibility it will. But departments are actively working on resolving those deficiencies and moving forward in corrective action to remediate those issues. As it relates to the overall process, at this point, we have identified 1,967 risks in our overall risk inventory. Having said that, the risk inventory was basically a consolidation of various risks that have been identified post-transformation. So we do believe there are some duplications in that process, and we are working on rectifying that and consolidating those into a true singular risk library for the organization. At this point, there are 1,348 controls, of which 1,274, 94% are ranked very high, high, or significant that have been entered into Archer. We continue to utilize Archer for many different functions, including we're now working with cybersecurity to enhance the system by including third-party risk management functionality. All modules in Archer are now operational and functioning. We continue to monitor external risks, including COVID-19, cybersecurity, post-transformation risk, as well as the migration of third-party risk data and business continuity data from their current systems or non-systems into Archer. So that's a quick overview of my presentation. Any questions?
Thank you, Lamont. Any questions? Good. Okay, continuing with Lamont, he will present the results of the all-agency internal control reports issued to the New York City Division of Budget as required by the Government Accountability, Audit, and Internal Control Act.
Unfortunately, that report is not ready at this point in time. However, the report is not due until April. We usually are well ahead of the curve on that, so we're a little bit behind right now. We will have it done on time. But as the control self-assessment, as I mentioned before, has to be completed before we can prepare that report. But again, the report is not due until April. All indications at this point are that there are no issues in terms of us complying with the Internal Control Act as well as internal control standards.
Thank you, Lamont. Any questions? Okay, one last item for Lamont, which is out of order from the work plan. Lamont has a brief report on the status of audit recommendations previously accepted by the agencies. Lamont?
Yes, if you, on page 182 of your committee book, there is a presentation on the audit recommendations that were issued by Audit Services, as well as recommendations that are driven from control self-assessments that are done by compliance that are 6 months past their original implementation date. I've concluded a report that lays out how we're tracking those now, and I think by now you realize we're tracking those utilizing the technology RSA Archer, and we've fully integrated that process. And it's not just technology, it's a process that now coordinates between management, audit, and compliance to provide a higher level of accountability to this committee. On the slide, you'll see that as of right now, there are quite a few that are past due. As I said before at the last audit committee meeting, we are working through, some of these are old, and we do have reason to believe that they have in fact been implemented. But as part of that new process, I hate to use this term, it's kind of trust but verify. So we have been told that they've done it, but until you can prove to both Michelle and I that you've done it, it stays open in our books. So we're still working through that process of providing verification on all of these recommendations. At this point, there are approximately 34 now as we speak that fall into that high priority class. I was asked at the last audit committee to provide a little bit more detail. I provided you with a report that kind of lays out a detailed list. It is, as you note, marked confidential because of the nature of the information in there. It involves issues involving Mr. Portnoy's area, as well as human resources, labor relations, all of which involve discipline and other issues that, might be somewhat sensitive.
Sure.
But you do have the information in front of you.
I'll just make note that Lamont brought hard copies, so I will provide a copy to Robert and David, who are both virtual today.
Thank you. Thank you, Lamont. Any questions?
It's the one with the big red confidential on the top.
I got it.
Sorry.
Yeah, we have a hard copy. Any questions?
That ends my presentation.
Yes, perfect. Next, we have Michelle Woods, Auditor General, who will discuss MTA Audit Services activities and accomplishments in 2021 and present the proposed audit plan for 2022. Michelle?
Good afternoon. I would like to update the committee on the year-end status of the 2021 audit plan and present a summary of the proposed 2022 audit plan. Our audit mission is to provide insightful, proactive, and future-focused quality results while promoting governance, considering risks and controls, and identifying organizational improvements. I would like to thank my direct reports who are here, Darren Jorgens, Phyllis Richardson, and Judy Beckford, as well as the entire audit staff for the results that we achieved in 2021. During the year, we completed 82 operational and assurance audits. These audits identified 196 findings, and the audit team made recommendations to improve internal controls, compliance with established processes, while reducing risk. We identified potential cost savings and efficiency opportunities of $47 million, which include opportunities to reduce costs, avoid unnecessary expenditures, or otherwise enhance revenue collections. We also performed 164 audits related to capital projects. This work included reviews of cost proposals, interim reviews, closeout audits, and audits of claims to ensure contract billings were appropriate. Third-party question costs were $15.9 million. A brief summary of each operational audit has been provided to the audit committee members as part of our year-end summary report. The number of audits issued was impacted by the ongoing vacancies within the department. We currently have 15 vacancies within our approved budgeted headcount of 61. Some of the significant operational audits this year included reviews of the COVID cleaning, also the medical eligibility follow-up review at New York City Transit, and various timekeeping payroll audits at all of the agencies. Our capital contract auditors worked with project management to review additional work orders, claims, and performed final audits of projects that were completed during the year. In 2013, with the approval from the Audit Committee, we established a Sandy Oversight Committee in cooperation with the MTA IG to perform independent integrity monitoring services for those projects which received FTA emergency funding. Our Sandy Audit Unit continued to perform assurance audits. We reported the results to the FTA on a quarterly basis. Since this unit was established in 2013, we've completed 140 projects, made 372 recommendations, with cost adjustments of approximately $62 million. As required by the grant funding agreement, we will continue to perform these audits of ongoing Sandy projects, and we have committed to following up on all open recommendations until they are fully implemented. The pension quality assurance function was established in 2013 as well, at the request of HQ management. This group reviews the pension calculations of the defined benefit plan for Metro North, MTA Police, MTA Bus, and Long Island Railroad's open and closed plans. They provide pension management with the results of the reviews daily so that corrections can be made prior to payments being processed. Quarterly reports summarizing the QA results are also provided to pension management to identify trends and areas for reinstruction. In 2021, the Pension QA Group reviewed over 1,400 pension calculations, identified 296 errors with a financial impact of $3.5 million. Our onboard program. This is at the railroads. The onboard team performed over 2,900 tests at both Long Island Railroad and Metro North this year to ensure that conductors are collecting the correct fare and they're in compliance with the standard operating procedures. The results of these tests were reported to agency management, and they used the information in these tests to estimate the rate of fare not collected and improper fare collection. Information from the observations also allows management the opportunity to adjust resources where needed. Now I'll provide a brief summary of the proposed 2022 audit plan, which has been discussed with each of the agency presidents and the MTA tower leads. The foundation of the audit plan was developed through a formal risk assessment that is performed in accordance with the Institute of Internal Auditor standards. We began our planning process in September, and it takes us several months to complete, resulting in a comprehensive risk assessment, which is fully documented. Consistent with prior years, the risk assessment sources included financial data, an assessment of operations, control activities, and previous audit results. We conducted 82 management interviews and identified 144 potential audits. We prioritized the audit suggestions and developed a proposed audit plan with 93 operational assurance audits for 2022. I met with the agency presidents and tower leads to discuss and finalize the proposed plan and made adjustments as needed to ensure the areas of greatest risk will have appropriate audit coverage. This chart is a snapshot of where some of those 93 audits are included in the 22 plan. It's designed by business function, service delivery, procurement, capital program, finance, revenue, human resources, safety, and technology. We perform various audits across the agencies in each of these areas. Several of the audits are done under headquarters because of the transformed consolidated functions. This is a visual representation of how we plan to allocate the resources associated with our assurance audits during the year. The MTA HQ resource allocation is higher than in prior years, primarily due to the increase of consolidated functions, including technology, which will cover all agencies when we do those reviews. This is a representation of how our audit staff resources will be allocated across functions. I believe the plan meets the challenge to provide a balance of audit coverage for MTA and each of its agencies. With additional resignations and retirements this year, our current incumbent headcount is 47. There's actually been one additional one since this chart was made. The impact of the completion of the audit plan will be dependent on when we can onboard new staff to fill the current vacancies. I did receive approval to hire from the Vacancy Control Committee to maintain the budgeted staffing level of 61, which is already a 30% reduction from our approved headcount of 87 in 2019. I believe the current budgeted staffing level is appropriate to address the areas of risk we've identified for 2022 and to complete the plan included in the support functions required by management. However, continued vacancies will impact the actual number of audits we are able to complete. In 2022, we will focus our efforts to support the transformation initiatives of the MTA to improve efficiency and effectiveness of operations. We will also continue to support agency-wide operational goals with respect to timekeeping and overtime and evaluate contractor performance. Finally, we will continue to coordinate audit activities with various external audit entities, and we will work with the internal control staff to ensure all recommendations are effectively implemented. MTA Audit Services has worked with procurement on the solicitation for the next independent auditor contract for the MTA and its agencies. Deloitte & Touche was selected for the competitively negotiated personal service contract to serve as the independent auditor for MTA and its agencies. The period of performance will be 1 year with an option to renew annually for 6 additional years. The period is January 1st, 2022 to December 31st, 2028. This contract was presented at the Finance Committee in the prior committee meeting. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. Sure.
So as I understand, looking at your page on audit resource allocation, you were budgeted 87 how long ago?
In 2019, prior to the transformation, the consolidation, and the financial crisis.
So under that consolidation transformation, was that those 27 people picked up in other areas in terms of, because if we're now gone from 87 to now 48, that's not slightly more than half. So what is missing, or where is the work being done that used to be done?
So, I mean, we had a financial crisis, and so we had a hiring freeze for several years, and so the reduction from 87 to 61, which is the approved budget, happened over a period of several years through attrition. We actually had, if you recall, I don't know if you recall, but when you first came to the audit committee, we had all new executive management. So I was the deputy auditor general, but everyone else, the auditor general and the 3 assistant auditor generals, all retired. And so we've had quite a bit of turnover. So where they went, we have had employees that have gone externally as well as to other agencies, but we also have had quite a few retirements. So that's kind of how we didn't have to lay anyone off. We just reduced through attrition. I worked with a past chairman to try to identify what the appropriate number of staff were under this new transformed MTA, where we're able to do these consolidated kind of audits of certain areas, and that's when where we came to the 61 headcount. Since the first vacancy where we got under 61, I've received approval from the Vacancy Control Committee to hire. So through the past 2 years, I've had approval to hire. It's been a challenge to hire. So we're having the same problems that you're hearing about everywhere else. We're not having a lot of applicants for the vacancies, and when we do identify people through our interviews, people have gone. So that challenge, that hiring challenge, is just simply a matter of the market stabilizing and us being able to catch up to that. So I do believe that 61's appropriate. We need that many people to really effectively do the audits that need to be done. So we're short now.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you, Michelle. Are there any other questions? May I have a motion to accept the proposed audit plan for 2022? Thank you. May I have a second? Thank you. And a vote to accept the proposed audit plan? Thank you. The proposed audit plan is accepted. I would also like to take a vote to recommend that the board approve the award of the competitively negotiated personal services contract to Deloitte & Touche to serve as the independent auditor for the MTA and its agencies. As indicated by Michelle in her presentation, Deloitte received the highest ranking by all members of the selection committee based on their experience in the public sector and their proposed work plan. The contract was presented to the Finance Committee for their approval in the prior Finance Committee meeting. However, the Audit Committee is also required as part of their charter to approve the independent auditor contract. Therefore, may I have a motion to recommend that the board approve the award of the independent auditor contract to Deloitte & Touche LLP? Thank you. Second, please. Thank you. And a vote to recommend the board approval for the award of the contract? Thank you. The last item on the agenda is a presentation by Ralph Portnoy, the MTA Chief Technology Officer, on the activities of MTA IT for the past year, including accomplishments, strategies, and plans for the current year. Ralph?
Thank you, Jamie. Hi, everybody. My name is Ralph Portnoy. I'm a Chief Technology Officer at the MTA. We're going to have a brief presentation about the activities that has taken place in 2021 and some of the visions for 2022 for the IT department. As a reminder, the IT departments consist of a number of different functions. We are in the process of refining the current representation of how IT is organized. We're going forward with 4 distinct areas of product, cybersecurity, IT operations, and I cannot see what it says on the screen. Excuse me one second, because it's positioned a little bit differently. And enterprise strategy and architecture. We have a what we call MTA Business Support Unit, which consists of, thank you, Lamont, which consists of the IT business operations, client services, and workforce planning. If we look back at 2021, it's been a difficult year for the entire world, certainly for our country, for the region, and for the MTA as a whole. At the same time, MTA IT team has provided unstoppable support for the MTA. We have been here throughout the pandemic, supporting all of the operating agencies. We supported Rail Control Center and all other areas of all MTA agencies. In addition, we've done a few other things. We have continued our focus on information technology security. That's been at the top of our priorities. We have expanded our IT security coverage, or expanding, I should say, into operational technology networks where the threats are coming to. We also stood up, and we're going to talk more about IT security a little bit further down in the presentation. We have also stood up what we call capital projects unit. Within information technology, we recognize that we need to partner with our colleagues in the C&D to ensure that technology requirements are incorporated into our capital plans early on, so we can take advantage of planning, we can take advantage of the capital plans, and it's actually working out really well. We're able to identify a number of projects where IT help and expertise is needed, and we're partnering with the C&D unit going across not just the immediate needs, but also looking at the future, so we can create a technology plan that follows the transformation of the MTA. And please feel free to stop me at any point. However, I will say that IT is not just things that are on paper. We've done a few things that are really cool, which I'm extremely proud of. I should say that the team has performed extremely well. So please take a look at the few slides that I'm going to share with you, and let's discuss some of the enhancements. I don't know why this is not working. Some of the enhancements that IT was able to implement. I think that the cornerstone of our 2021 accomplishment was the M&R Train Time app for the Apple Watch. The team, and I would say this is certainly the first one in North America and probably the first one in the world, the team was able to develop a standalone application that works right off the Apple Watch, and for those of us who use Android, that's coming shortly. But the app itself allows to get to the customers the very information that they need at their fingertips. So things like scheduling, bookmarking, occupancy of train cars gets right into the watch, so it allows our customers to take full advantage of the information that's now available to all of them. The work on M&R train time and passenger crowding information has continued to get further refined, and we're also very happy and proud that we now have gateways from both Long Island Railroad and M&R train crowding information right into Google. So, of course, we want you to come to our apps because we think that they're substantially better than what you'd get from the ecosystem. But if you happen to be on Google Maps, you will now be getting the same information as well. I'm highlighting LIR passenger counting app because not many people know, but the way we get information from the trains on Long Island Railroad is slightly different than M&R. And the team was able to pivot. We did a lot of cross-training, so the information on Long Island Railroad, from Long Island Railroad is available to their passengers as well. We're also designing applications that are creating the cross-functional integrations between the systems, so we don't have to do separate work from Long Island Railroad and for the Metro North as well. Another app that we developed for the internal use, which is worth highlighting, is something we call MTA Insight app. That was the application that was developed for our employees to have access to their information at fingertips. We do have a variety of different systems of different ages, and this allowed us, without rewriting the entire ecosystem, to actually pull the information from some of the systems that are fairly old and give it to our employees. And as you can see on the screen, there is a large number of downloads. These apps are very popular. They provide a lot of interesting information to our colleagues in New York City Transit. And then finally, the team, with help and with partnership from the MTA HQ Emergency Response and Safety Team, we have developed a full ecosystem for COVID-19 response. And that included a large variety of different applications. The engagement has been overwhelming. We know it hasn't been very easy for everyone, so a lot of people have found this information very useful. Are there any questions on 2021 accomplishments before we talk about 2022? Great. So for 2022, our main focus is going to be on on the new project that is finally gaining momentum. That's called CMS, which stands for the Consolidation, Modernization, and Standardization. We realize and recognize that the technology does not operate on the same life cycle as many other areas, certainly not in the same as construction, capital construction, slightly different than operations. And we need to make sure that we are constantly improving our world where technology is spread over a number of different years. So we are now focused on improving infrastructure, on making sure that we're addressing obsolescence, because it's also an IT security concern, and we're creating standardized environment which is substantially cheaper and easier to operate. Any questions on this? No. We are going to have a number of different activities around CMS that are planned over the next 3 years. Focus specifically on infrastructure improvements. We are going to focus on something we call product roadmap, which allows us to align the internal teams directly with the business requirements. So historically, IT has been this big organization, and then people will come in and say, can I have a developer for this, and can I have a developer for that? We're now changing that model where we're basically partnering directly with business, so we understand what the needs are, but the business also understands what our limitations in terms of personnel and capacity are. So the business and IT can plan directly together. And then finally, we are continuing to focus on cybersecurity. This is one of our highest priorities. This has been an enormous challenge, especially with the changing geopolitical situation, and the team continues to focus on that. This concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Very interesting. Thank you, Ralph. Any questions? Yes?
Maybe I'm speaking as a dinosaur here, but I'm wondering in terms of the public, this terrific stuff you have on Apple Watch and that you're kind of spreading, training for the public, and how much do we have out there, and should we be allocating the ability to bring people up to speed and how to use this? And I mean, everybody has a phone. And I'm not sure what percentage of customers are using some of the terrific stuff that you've done. Do we know what percentage are using it, and how do we expand that?
Commissioner, thank you for the question. I think it's an interesting one. I'll be honest with you, I don't think I ever thought about that, but I'm sure that's something we can discuss with our HR department, maybe our partners at the customer organization, and maybe we could do something.
Good, thanks.
Any other questions? All good. Thank you, Ralph, again. And now, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? A long day. Second? Okay, and a vote to adjourn?
Aye.
Thank you very much. The Audit Committee meeting is now adjourned. Appreciate it.